I'll call the meeting to order. The State Government Policy and Finance Elections Committee today being Tuesday, March 16th, 2021 for the audio record. And with that, members, we're ready to get started on our agenda. And our first bill on deck this morning is Senate File 485. Welcome, Senator Lang. And Senator Curran, would you go ahead and do the motions today?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move Senate File 485.
Thank you, Senator Curran. And Senator Lang, you do have an amendment?
That's correct, Madam Chair. Good morning. Before you, I have Senate File 485 this morning. The A3 amendment, I believe you should have that before you. And if everybody would like me to explain that.
Yes, this has been sent out and posted, as I understand it. Yes, that's confirmed. So yes, we have the A3 amendment. Yes, Senator Lang, go ahead and explain your amendment before we make the motion.
So members, as this bill has progressed, actually last year and this year, there have become some clarification. And really what this is largely a technical amendment that addresses some of the concerns as it had gone through the House. This amendment did come from those committees, and I tend to agree with everything it said. It just clarifies a little bit of how as the bill, and when I get into the bill, I could probably get into this a little bit more, Madam Chair, but there's a couple of lines in there, and then actually the biggest portion of it is on page 2, line 27, where it talks about some additional criteria as it comes to each flag in the bill and who qualifies for each one of those flags. So not entirely too complicated, but if there's any questions about the amendment, I'd take them now.
Okay. Any questions regarding the amendment, members? Okay, seeing none, Senator Curran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move the A3 amendment to the Senate File 485.
On that motion, please unmute and be on camera, members. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, those opposed? Motion prevails and is adopted. Senator Lang, now to your bill as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, members and Madam Chair, before you this morning, Senate File 485. 485 represents a couple of years of work between myself and Representative Hewitt in the House that this is something that I've actually been participating in since I came here in 2016. And it has been where I have flown several flags over the Capitol and paid for myself. And it's something that kind of developed out of an idea to make it a little more of a formal process and have the state involved and have a consistent message. And really what it is all we're going to do is fly an American flag over the Capitol for a lost service member, a lost member of the law enforcement, or EMS. If one of those folks is either has died or was lost in the line of duty, this is what this program is for. So we'll fly a flag and we'll give them a certificate, and we'll pass it on to their family. So that, in a nutshell, is the bill. Again, like I said, this has gone through several different revisions through the last couple of years. And I think we're at a place now where we have a pilot program. We're going to find out exactly what it costs. We do have some contributing members and we'll just call them non-governmental organizations that will be considering and donating flags, donating time. Granted, they're not in the bill because we're not going to be specifically holding their feet to the fire. But yeah, there's a lot of interest in the program, and I think this bill addresses it in such a way that the state of Minnesota and hopefully the Senate can get behind. So I guess with that, Madam Chair, you do have a long agenda, and I don't have much more to explain about the bill. So if there's any questions.
Thank you, Senator Lang. And yeah, we are familiar with the bill, and I think all the effort to make the language clear and to clarify and lay that out is all really good. It's nothing worse than starting a program and things are not done well. Then you have issues and problems, and then it's, especially in something like this, more difficult. I'm just going to have Mr. Erickson, though, go over fiscal note and just give us any fiscal information. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The fiscal note has not been completed, but my understanding of where it stands with this amendment that brings it into conformity with the House piece is that the pieces, by making the effective date for free flags moving forward, it limits the number of people who might have administrative burden on admin. And then the program itself will only be run to the extent that there are actual funds in the gift fund to operate the program. So that also keeps the program revenue neutral or cost neutral at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Okay, with that, members, any questions for the author, Senator Lang? Well, Senator Lang, when you've worked really hard on your bill and you've kind of addressed some of those things that at one time you get that done and it goes pretty smoothly. So that's always nice. It's certainly better. At any rate, members, with that, Senator Curran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move Senate File 485 as amended be recommended to pass and re-referred to the Veterans and Military Affairs Finance and Policy Committee.
All right, members, if you unmute and be on camera. All those in favor of Senate File 485 as amended, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? Same sign. Motion prevails. Senator Lang, you're on your way back to your committee.
Well, thank you, members and Madam Chair. I appreciate the time and the consideration.
Good presentation. Thank you. All right. Okay, members, our next bill on the agenda is Senate File 839. Senator Johnson, welcome to the committee again. You've become a frequent visitor. We're glad to have you. And we appreciate the opportunity today to hear Senate File 839. And Senator Osmek, would you take care of the motions for this bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move Senate File 839 be recommended to pass and referred to the Environment and Natural Resources Finance Committee.
Okay, we'll get there in just a moment on that motion, but we'll just have the Senate file in front of us for right now. And Senator Johnson, we will have you go ahead and present your bill. Do you have any amendments, Senator Johnson?
Madam Chair, members, I do not have any amendments at this point.
All right, then you can go ahead and present your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members, and thank you for the opportunity to hear Senate File 839. I have had the opportunity to be here a number of times. Maybe that's because I've moved offices and I'm closer to you now, so you've been taking those bills, but appreciate the opportunity. So what this bill does is it is in regards to the whole effluent toxicity measurements that we have across the state. Currently, we have two different measurements. We have one over on the Great Lakes Basin area and another one for the rest of the state. One is done through rules and one is done through policymaking. What this bill does is puts one standard across the state to help give some clear guidance to industries across the state on what they need to be doing to be able to meet these requirements. Now, this is a highly technical bill with a lot of engineering in it. It's very short and straightforward on paper, but when you get into the details, it becomes a highly technical bill. But what we're trying to do simply is to make sure that industry knows what they need to be meeting when they try to reach these certain levels across the state. So with that, I have a couple of wonderful testifiers who are able to explain a little bit more clearly on the differences across Minnesota and why this bill is important. And Madam Chair, if it'd be all right, this time I would like them to take over the testimony.
Okay, do you have the? We don't have their names down, Senator Johnson. So if you would just say their names and then I'll call them.
So we have Jeremy Greenhouse and Doug Emerson. And then we also have Keith. I think he's listed here as KPM. And then I know Greta Gauthier from the department would also like to speak on the bill.
Right. So I have Jeremy Greenhouse, Doug Emerson, and Keith. Did you have a last name there?
Pilgrim. Keith Pilgrim.
Okay, P-I-L-K-A.
P-I-L-G-R-I-M, just like the Pilgrims.
Pilgrim. Okay. That was just a little too easy. Thank you very much, Mr. Pilgrim. All right. We'll go first to Mr. Greenhouse, Jeremy Greenhouse. If you'd identify yourself for the audio record and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If it's okay, I'd like to pass it over to Doug Emerson to start our presentation. But if possible, I'd like to share my screen with a PowerPoint presentation, if that's okay.
Are you going to share the screen while Mr. Emerson speaks?
That was my hope, Madam Chair, yeah, to share it when Mr. Emerson speaks, and then myself and Mr. Pilgrim as well, with just one PowerPoint presentation.
Clearance.
Okay, we've given you clearance to go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'll call, and then Mr. Emerson, as soon as the screen is up, then you can go ahead and start the testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Again, my name is Doug Emerson, and I'm the Environmental Affairs Manager for American Crystal Sugar Company. And appreciate the opportunity today to speak to you about Senate File 839. Our company supports this bill because it would eliminate a double standard being applied within the state of Minnesota regarding the requirements that businesses who discharge wastewater must meet for whole effluent toxicity, or WET. This double standard has a significant impact on American Crystal Sugar. As I will explain, if we were located within the Lake Superior Basin region of Minnesota, MPCA's rules would allow a wet mixing zone, and implementing this mixing zone would cost less than $1 million. However, because we are located outside of the Lake Superior Basin, the same rules do not apply, and MPCA has a policy prohibiting wet mixing zones. As a result, to meet the wet requirements, we would need to build a treatment facility that would cost $14 million. American Crystal Sugar believes the requirements should be the same across the state. American Crystal Sugar was founded in 1899, built its first Red River Valley processing plant in 1926, and became a farmer-owned cooperative in 1973. American Crystal is the largest sugar beet processor in the United States, with over 2,600 grower owners and over 2,000 employees. American Crystal operates 3 sugar beet processing plants in the Red River Valley of Northwest Minnesota, along with 2 processing plants in eastern North Dakota and 1 additional plant in eastern Montana. One of American Crystal Sugar Company's plants is in Crookston, Minnesota, a small municipality with just over 8,000 residents. The plant was built in 1954 and provides jobs for about 280 employees. American Crystal Sugar holds a permit to discharge wastewater for its Crookston, Minnesota sugar beet processing facility. The principal activity at the Crookston facility, as with all of American Crystal Sugar Company's factories, is the processing of sugar beets into refined sugar, molasses, and dried beet pulp. Because sugar beets are approximately 70% water, the process of transforming the beets into sugar beets generates a substantial amount of water. Much of this is recycled as processed water. The facility treats any extra water through a large network of treatment ponds before the facility can discharge the final treated wastewater into the nearby Red Lake River. Certain permit conditions must be met. Please note the facility is authorized to discharge only treated water to the Red Lake River. One permit condition is the passing of an annual whole effluent toxicity test. The test measures the level of toxicity to fish and other aquatic life within a municipality or business's discharges. WET looks at the effluent as a whole as opposed to looking at levels of individual chemicals. WET tests are conducted in a laboratory setting For this reason, a wet test is a conservative test and does not reflect the mixing of effluent with the receiving water. Under Crookston's permit, if the wet level during one of these annual tests exceeds certain thresholds, the permit requires the facility to submit plans to the MPCA to identify the sources of the exceedance and evaluate ways to reduce the toxicity. After exceeding the testing thresholds during Crookston's annual wet test in 2010, American Crystal Sugar Company has been working in good faith with the MPCA for over a decade to identify possible sources of toxicity in Crookston's discharge and to find ways to address toxicity. Potential treatment options have been presented and shared with the MPCA. One of the most cost-effective solutions includes the establishment of what is known as an acute wet mixing zone. A mixing zone is frequently used when MPCA sets effluent limits in NPDES permits. It allows an effluent limit to be less stringent than the applicable water quality standard, so as long as the standard is met in the receiving water body shortly after mixing with the effluent. Again, it allows a less stringent permit limit as long as the applicable water quality is met after mixing. MPCA's rules in the Lake Superior Basin allow a limited mixing zone for wet. Thus, Crystal Sugar's proposed solution for Crookston factored in the wet mixing zone allowed under MPCA's Lake Superior Basin rules. It is important to emphasize that this approach is not only allowed by MPCA in the Lake Superior Basin, it is also recommended by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to address toxicity and allowed by other states, including North Dakota. Unfortunately, the MPCA has denied American Crystal Sugar's proposal, saying the agency has a policy of not allowing acute wet mixing zone in areas outside of Minnesota's Lake Superior Basin. The result of MPCA's actions is that Minnesota businesses such as ours in rural Crookston are being forced to unnecessarily incur millions of dollars in wastewater treatment, while similarly situated businesses in the Lake Superior Basin do not have to incur these costs. As I mentioned, the wastewater treatment system American Crystal Sugar will need to construct to meet these wet requirements without the mixing zone allowance will cost $14 million, not including operating costs. By contrast, the approach proposed by Crystal Sugar, which would be allowed if we were simply located in the Lake Superior Basin, would cost less than $1 million. It is also important to emphasize that this reduced financial cost would not come at the expense of aquatic life. In fact, as Crystal Sugar's wastewater advisor, Keith Pilgrim, will explain later in this presentation, Crystal Sugar's proposed solution would provide greater protection of aquatic life than the approach currently required by the MPCA for the greater portion of Minnesota. Finally, one of the reasons American Crystal Sugar Company is in favor of this bill is that it can ensure equal treatment of businesses while still protecting the environment. We know the wet mixing zone approach will protect aquatic life in the receiving water because both the MPCA and EPA have already said it does. Now I'd like to turn it over to our environmental legal counsel, Jeremy Greenhouse, who will explain some of the regulatory aspects of this bill.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Emerson and Mr. Greenhouse. If you would say your name for the audio record and title, and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Jeremy Greenhouse, and I'm outside legal counsel for American Crystal Sugar Company.
You can go.
So yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. As Doug said, I just wanted to touch on a couple of regulatory issues, and I apologize if I'm getting a little into the weeds here. I'll try not to get too technical, but it's important to emphasize that MPCA expressly allows mixing zones. So in MPCA's statewide water quality rules, they set technical specifications for mixing zones to protect aquatic life. If a discharger can demonstrate to MPCA that it can meet those specifications, the rules then require that a reasonable allowance will be made for dilution of the effluents following discharge into the receiving waters. Mixing zones are common in Minnesota and elsewhere, and they've been used for decades in setting NPDES permit limits. So even though they're common, however, MPCA's statewide mixing zone rules do not specifically address mixing zones for whole effluent toxicity. By contrast, as Doug touched upon, in the Lake Superior Basin, dischargers in the basin are subject to MPCA's statewide mixing zone requirements, as well as whole effluent toxicity specific mixing zone rules that only apply in the Lake Superior Basin. So the PCA adopted these rules back in 1998 pursuant to the EPA's Great Lakes Initiative. You may be familiar with this, to make standards consistent across the Great Lakes states. And as part of that guidance, it requires these Great Lakes states to include a whole effluent criteria of 0.3 TUA, toxicity, acute toxic units. However, those regulations provide guidance saying that the decision to allow a wet mixing zone or not is at the discretion of the permitting authority. So when MPCA adopted their rules, they chose to allow a limited wet mixing zone for the Lake Superior Basin. And so I've got the text of the rule up here. You'll see the Lake Superior Basin rules say that no effluent shall exceed 1.0 TUA unless a demonstration is provided that 0.3 can be met at the edge of the mixing zone. So you have these two ways of complying with the wet mixing zone in the Lake Superior Basin. Either you make sure your effluent meets 1.0 at what we sometimes call the end of the pipe, or you make a demonstration to MPCA that you can meet 0.3 TUA at the edge of an approved mixing zone. And that's really the key difference allowed in the Lake Superior Basin that I'm trying to address with this bill. So outside of the Lake Superior Basin, as I mentioned, the statewide rules don't address whole effluent toxicity or wet mixing zones. Rather, MPCA prohibits wet mixing zones based on a 20-year-old policy document called the Methodology for the Development of Water Quality-Based Effluent Limits for Toxic Substances. This policy document describes itself as being MPCA's temporary guidance document in these matters until such time as rules are finalized. The MPCA has yet to adopt these rules, and as far as we know, has no plans to undertake that rulemaking. That policy document sets forth that effluent must meet 1.0 TUA at the end of the pipe. So that's the first part of the Lake Superior Basin rules, but it does not allow the option of meeting 0.3 TUA at the edge of a mixing zone as allowed in Lake Superior Basin and in other states. And so that's the key difference that this bill addresses between how MPCA regulates wet in the Lake Superior Basin versus the rest of the state. So just briefly, as Senator Johnson touched upon, the way that this bill is designed to fix that double standard is to, first of all, direct the MPCA to undertake that rulemaking it referenced 20 years ago. And then secondly, to keep things simple, it just says, simply make the Lake Superior Basin requirements apply statewide. And then until those rules are finalized, the bill also includes some interim provisions directing PCA to, until they've done the rulemaking, to apply the Lake Superior Basin standards statewide, and then also some temporary implementation provisions concerning anti-backsliding and the meaning of acutely toxic. And just quickly, I'd like to address a couple of questions that have come up with the bill. One was whether the bill violates the Clean Water Act, and it does not. States implementing the Clean Water Act sometimes have requirements to implement whole effluent toxicity limits, and that arises under EPA's federal regulations implementing the Clean Water Act. But states, and this is very clear in EPA guidance, states have the discretion whether or not to allow a wet mixing zone. And the fact that the bill does not violate the Clean Water Act, I think, is most obviously demonstrated by the fact that EPA has approved state regulations allowing wet mixing zones in other states, including, for example, Wisconsin and Missouri. So the type of wet mixing zone that is being proposed in Bill 839 is what is already allowed in these other states, among others. The bill is also consistent with, as I say, with those rules, but also with longstanding EPA guidance. And finally, I wanted to address one last question that has come up, and that is, isn't there a litigation concerning this bill? And litigation is not quite accurate, but indeed on January 15th of this year, Crystal Sugar commenced an administrative petition process with the Office of Administrative Hearings under Minnesota Statute 14381. And this statute allows a petitioner to basically ask an ALJ for a declaration that an agency policy is an unadopted rule. And so Crystal Sugar brought that petition concerning MPCA's wet policy. MPCA submitted a response and the ALJ has not yet issued its decision. Adoption of this bill would make that petition proceeding moot. And finally, just on behalf of the company, I'd like to emphasize that Crystal Sugar takes its corporate environmental responsibilities very seriously. You won't see Crystal Sugar appearing very often before the legislator committees like this. You won't see Crystal Sugar in court challenging the Pollution Control Agency very often. But given the extreme cost of the additional treatment facilities that Doug was describing earlier, and given the fact that, as Keith Pilgrim will demonstrate here, that the proposed mixing zone approach that Crystal Sugar is suggested to MPCA will actually provide greater protection for aquatic life. Crystal Sugar felt that after 10 years of trying to work with MPCA, it had no choice but to take additional steps to address the equity of this double standard. And with that, Madam Chair, if it's okay, I'd like to pass it over to Keith Pilgrim briefly.
Madam Chair, I think you're on mute still.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Greenhouse. I appreciate the clear presentation. Then we'll move on to Mr. Keith Pilgrim to continue. And again, your name and title for the audio record, Mr. Pilgrim, but then you can just proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Keith Pilgrim. I'm a water resources scientist with Barr Engineering Company. So Jeremy and Doug pointed out some things and has some terminology in it that I just want to make clear so everybody's on the same page here. So Doug showed a picture of a laboratory experiment being conducted, which is a whole effluent toxicity test where they take the effluent and they test it with aquatic organisms in the laboratory. A TUA is a value that is generated as the outcome of that test. It's a number. So it's the same concept when that TUA is used to set permit limits. It's the same concept as setting a limit for a chemical like copper. A bigger TUA value equals more toxic and less protective, and a smaller TUA value is less toxic and more protective. The current rule is a TUA of 1.0, and the proposed rule is a TUA of 0.3. If you go to the next slide, Jeremy. The current policy MPCA is to set a TUA end of pipe of 1.0 not to be exceeded. A typical configuration of this kind of situation is a discharge pipe that is at the edge of the stream. So it just pokes into the stream and the discharge comes into the stream. The current policy allows for the discharge of this pipe without rapid mixing. So you can see in this demonstration, this figure, that as it comes into the river, it's got a TUA of 1, and then it dilutes downstream, and eventually it may reach a 0.3. Oftentimes, these effluents may hug the bank and have poor mixing. It takes a while until its dilution actually occurs. So my main point here is that the proposed rule actually can be more protective than the current rule, with the TUA of 1, which is a large number, and a TUA of 0.3, which is a smaller number. So if you see the next slide, Jeremy, with a properly designed mixing zone and rapid mixing, you can get a TUA of 0.3 very quickly within the receiving stream, which means less toxicity. And there's a much smaller zone where organisms will be exposed to higher concentrations of effluent and greater potential for toxicity. So with the mixing zone, as the proposed rule has, you'll have a very small region where the TUA may be above 0.3, but rapidly is to 0.3 within that mixing zone, as you can see. Typical configuration is to have this pipe at the bottom of the river with the jets shooting up into the river to enhance rapid mixing. It should be pointed out that AmeriCrystal's approach to this is to use what's called a diffuser to induce this rapid mixing to address the proposed rules necessary mixing zone demonstration. And that's my presentation. I'd like to give this back to Doug Emerson for concluding statements.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pilgrim. And Mr. Emerson, if you want to continue or conclude the presentation, Mr. Emerson.
Sure, thank you. In summary, American Crystal Sugar Company supports Senate File 839 and urges the committee to approve the bill because it would ensure that businesses in all parts of Minnesota are afforded the same, more protective set of rules pertaining to whole effluent toxicity. It's a better way to discharge to a river body and significantly less costly to boot. And with that, we'd like to open it up to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Mr. Emerson. We're going to proceed to have Ms. Gauthier go ahead and testify, and then we will open it up to questions. Ms. Gauthier.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Greta Gauthier, and I'm an assistant commissioner at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Whole effluent toxicity is a tool from the Federal Clean Water Act that states use to ensure that discharge from permitted facilities does not harm the fish, the bugs, and the other aquatic life that live in the surface waters, what we call the receiving waters. Madam Chair, basically this bill seeks to allow both this permittee, American Crystal Sugar, and 40 other permittees like them statewide to create a zone within their receiving water where the conditions may be toxic to fish and aquatic life. Madam Chair, we oppose the bill for that and several other reasons. First, as I said, the bill is in conflict with federal law because the language in line 2.12 and 2.13 unilaterally rescinds the application of what is called anti-backsliding provisions in direct contradiction to the Clean Water Act regulations. By conflicting with federal regulations, this bill would increase uncertainty to permittees, and it would slow down our permitting process. Whole effluent toxicity, as I said, applies to 40 other permittees, and we would have to redo the permits for all of those entities. Secondly, as your testifier said, this matter is currently in litigation, and we feel that litigation should play out before statutory changes are made. The questions raised by earlier testifiers are really up to the Office of Administrative Hearings and the Administrative Law Judge, and we are not going to litigate in your committee, Madam Chair. Third, this language has significant costs that are not funded. For one thing, it requires a rulemaking. Secondly, if enacted, this language, as I said, we would have to redo 40 permits as well. Finally, Madam Chair, this bill to us represents a step backwards on water quality. In the old days, dilution was the solution to pollution, as they used to say, but it's been a long time since that was the case. Today, we look to control technology to answer and maintain and manage pollution. We regulate at the end of the pipe, Madam Chair. This bill would allow an increase in toxicity coming out of the discharge pipe because the bill would allow it to be measured farther away from the end of the pipe. If this language were in place today, we would see that for each of those 40 or so permittees I mentioned, there'd be a threefold increase in toxicity at the end of the pipe going into the receiving waters. Madam Chair, we have many Minnesotans asking us to protect and improve water quality, not the opposite. For these reasons, Madam Chair and members, we oppose this bill. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Gauthier. Appreciate your testimony. Members, when we are gaining information in a Senate hearing that is not contrary to the work that we do here all the time is potentially subject to litigation. So just to let you know that we are functioning within the purview of this committee and legislation. Ms. Gauthier, I wanted to ask you the question. If the Office of Administrative Hearings decides in favor of this wet approach in the mixing, so if the Administrative Office of Administrative Hearings rules in favor of that, would you take that recommendation and follow that? Ms. Gauthier?
Madam Chair, thank you for your question. I guess if we did get that reading or a ruling from the Administrative Law Judge, yes, Madam Chair, we always comply with what the Administrative Law Judge asks or requires.
Thank you, Ms. Gauthier. Members, other questions? I see Senator Clausen, and then we'll go to Senator Carlson. Senator Clausen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got two questions. My first one, if I heard correctly, the discharge is into the Red River, correct?
Who are you asking, Senator Clausen?
Mr. Emerson or Mr. Greenhouse?
Okay,
Is the
Mr.
discharge
Emerson
into
or
the Red River?
Greenhouse? Thank you, Senator Clausen. Mr. Emerson or Mr. Greenhouse, which one of you want to take that question?
I can take that. This is Doug Emerson.
Okay, Mr. Emerson, go ahead. Senator
It's
Clausen.
actually the Red Lake River, Senator Clausen.
Thank you for the clarification. I didn't quite catch that during the presentation. So I assume then that flows into the Red Lake Basin?
Yes.
Mr. Emerson,
Yes.
please wait to be called, though, so for the audio record, it is clear to anybody listening. So Senator Clausen, your question again, and then I'll call on Mr. Emerson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify that the wastewater would eventually flow into the Red River Basin, or I'm sorry, the Red Lake Basin.
Thank you, Senator Clausen. Mr. Emerson.
Yes, it flows into the Red Lake River, which eventually makes its way to the Red River.
Thank you, Mr. Emerson. Senator Clausen.
Thank you. My question is then that I know that there is an International Red River Board that kind of governs between the two countries what's happening with the river. It could be from hydroelectric plants to any number of different things. I believe there is a pollution component to that board. I'm just wondering if there's been any discussion but on that International Red River Board about your presentation and what you intend to do here.
Mr. Emerson, do you want to take the question again?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, American Crystal Sugar Company is fully aware of the agreement between Canada and the United States. The context of our involvement to date has not been in regard to whole effluent toxicity. We're looking at it from a phosphorus loading issue today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Emerson. Senator Clausen, looks like Ms. Gauthier, she came on camera. Ms. Gauthier, does that mean you would like to speak to this issue? Or did you just come on camera?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did fail to mention one point in my testimony. I apologize and wondered if there might be an opportunity for that at some point later on. Or
Okay,
no.
we'll follow the questions first and then I'll come back to you. And if perchance you need to do this to help me remember you, please do so. All right, Senator Clausen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick follow-up. At some point in this process, depending upon what the outcome would be, do you see that there's a requirement to bring this forward to that international board to discuss your intentions?
Mr. Emerson?
I'm not sure if it would be the board. It's my understanding that whatever comes out of that board, I believe, and the MPCA maybe could answer to this, but they would work out an agreement on how to regulate certain permittees that would have impact on the pollution in the Red River, I'm sorry.
And thank you, Mr. Emerson. Senator Clarkson? Did you have another question?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. I appreciate the discussion on this, and I'll end my question for now.
Thank you, Senator Clausen. If you put your hand down too while you're at it, that helps. All right, Senator Carlson, you're next.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I had largely the same question as to whether there is an international issue here with the discharge coming from the U.S. and into Canada, because I think, if I recall, quite some time ago there was some issues about that, and I'd like to hear what Ms. Gauthier would say about that. But I guess on extending to that, what we're talking about is making the let's say the performance across the state equal. And we have other discharge basins, and I'm wondering if there's any other consequences to another discharge area, for instance, the Mississippi River, if there's anything there that has to be separated out so that we could do this for the Crystal Sugar request, but then there are some other places that may have negative effects that we would have to separate out. And that's a question for Ms. Gauthier.
Okay, I'm just going to ask if you clarify that. All right, Ms. Gauthier, if you can come on screen and answer that question, please, from Senator Carlson. Do you need him to repeat it? And you can also make your other point while you're at it as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I don't think I need it repeated. Thank you. I believe there's a couple of questions. First of all, I'm not sure how the Red River International Board would handle this. We do interface with that board at the commissioner level a couple times a year, but I could see that it might be an issue that they might be concerned about. Second of all, as to whether this particular discharge would affect the Mississippi River, no, this is in the Red River Basin, but the other 40 permittees whose permits would be changed, I believe some of those are in the Mississippi watershed, and I would be happy to check on that and get back to Senator Carlson with that information and to the committee. And then third, the item of testimony I left off, Madam Chair, is pertaining to the rulemaking language in the bill. The bill gives us until January of next year to complete our rulemaking. And Madam Chair, we would need a lot more time than that. Our average rulemaking is 18 months to 2 years. And I imagine on this one, we would get a lot of public input. So there is a process laid out, as you know, in Chapter 14 that we would follow. So Madam Chair, we would need more time in order to, if this bill were to pass and we had to do this rule, we would have to suspend our enforcement at all of those 40 sites, redo, do the rule, redo their permits, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Now, Ms. Gauthier, my understanding, though, is a rule until it is finalized and changed. So the fact that you're in process of changing the rule doesn't mean you stop the effect of the rule that is currently in place. That is the general understanding. I don't know if I heard you correctly.
Madam Chair, thank you for that clarification. And you're right. However, we would not enforce the old rule knowing that a new rule is coming. That is typically what happens.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Gauthier.
You're welcome.
Senator Carlson, did you have another question?
Yeah, just one follow-up that came to me while Ms. Gauthier was speaking about it. What is the timing of this? What's the time frame where American Crystal Sugar is forced into a decision? And is that something that these details can be resolved before they have to take action so that they, for instance, if we would adopt this bill or would adopt the intentions of this bill, that they would not have to make the investment? What is the time frame on that? Where are they in their, let's say, forced construction?
Okay, Senator Carlson, I'm guessing that you would like Ms. Gauthier to answer that.
Either Ms. Gauthier or American Crystal Sugar also, because they would have the handle on their own plans.
Okay, Mr. Emerson, Ms. Gauthier, do you want to comment on that before I go to Mr. Emerson? The status of what happens to Crystal Sugar right now?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question, Senator Carlson. Madam Chair, we are waiting for the Office of Administrative Hearings, Administrative Law Judge decision, and we don't know when that will come down.
All right. Senator Carlson, do you want one more added here?
So I guess maybe just to clarify, if that would come down one way or the other, it could eliminate the need for this bill. Am I reading that correctly?
Mr. Emerson, do you want to respond to that?
Yes. So Senator Carlson, I'll just maybe elaborate on a few things here. We have been working with the agency for quite some time. the MPCA does have the $14 million plan in front of them. What we're doing is trying to alleviate that spending by reaching an agreement for this acute wet mixing zone. So it's kind of in flux. If this bill passes, we will obviously pursue a project to install a river diffuser as being the least costly and approved by the agency, with this bill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Emerson. Thank you, Senator Carlson. Okay, I have a few questions here, members, and just wanted to ask Ms. Gauthier, could you please explain why the Lake Superior Basin gets these special rules and others do not? What's the justification for that basin and not others? Ms. Gauthier.
Madam Chair, thank you for the question. The state of Minnesota had a whole effluent toxicity regulation and in place when the US EPA required all the states in the Great Lakes Basin to agree on some sort of a whole effluent toxicity limit for the Great Lakes specifically. So it was a federal requirement that the Great Lakes agree on a limit. The Great Lakes have, as you know, a huge capacity. Lake Superior is very big. So at the end of the day, we worked with the other Great Lakes states, so New York, Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, et cetera. And what we came up with was a whole effluent, a WET, sorry, we go by the acronyms, WET standard that is different. We have one permittee under that standard in Minnesota. And that standard does allow for a different amount, but it is because it was a federal requirement that we work with the other states and reach a compromise, which we did. And also because of the volume of the water in the Great Lakes.
Okay, well, volume of the water is also relative to the discharge. The other question I have for you is there was a slide that was shown to us, Mr. Emerson, maybe you can explain it. It was 20 years ago, there was some sort of rulemaking and you've been working with MPCA for 10 years. So why has it taken so long for this rulemaking, which might affect Crystal Sugar Company? And Ms. Gauthier and Mr. Emerson, each of you can respond to that question if you'd like. So this is specific to the rulemaking, and I don't have the slide in front of me, so I can't reference the actual. Mr. Emerson, do you want to give that information that you had on your slide in regards to the timing? 10 years you worked with, 20 years or so, that there were temporary rules. Could you repeat that information again?
Yeah, Madam Chair, could I call on Jeremy to possibly bring that slide back up? We can identify that.
Okay, Mr. Pilgrim or Mr. Estenson, I think it was.
Jeremy Greenhouse.
Jeremy Greenhouse. Okay, all right, we'll get it there yet. Mr. Greenhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is it okay if I pull up the slide again?
Yes.
I think this might be the slide we're talking about here. Or maybe it's this one.
Right.
Yeah. And just to put some context on that, as I mentioned in my part of the presentation, the MPCA does not have, the MPCA has rules that say they allow mixing zones. They don't disallow wet mixing zones, but the MPCA has a policy document that sets forth a prohibition against that 0.3 mixing zone that's allowed in Lake Superior Basin. So I have the name of that policy document here on the screen, and the date is uncertain, but our records show that it dates from at least prior to 2012, so we called it 20-year-old.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Greenhouse. Members, whenever we see words like, and we've dealt with this in this committee in the past years here, it's called unadopted rules. So because an agency has an internal policy or guidance, those are called unadopted rules and really don't have the status at all of rules themselves or statutes in particular. So those are unadopted rules and don't have the same force of law. But it appears as though, Ms. Gauthier, if you can address that, it seems as though you are taking this internal 20-year-old document and some guidance language and are treating them as if it is a rule, but it's been 20 years and it implies that rules would be finalized. Could you explain how you're using guidance and policies internal for this, Ms. Gauthier?
Madam Chair, thank you for the question. I don't believe that's what we are doing, Madam Chair. I will just say that there is no rulemaking underway pertaining to this facility. We have simply been trying to bring this permittee into compliance with the existing requirements for facilities such as theirs that are located outside of the Great Lakes watershed. I'm sorry, I am not familiar with the document to which this PowerPoint refers.
Well, then it's very important when we have this hearing. And so, Mr. Greenhouse, I would certainly think you ought to forward this to Ms. Gauthier and also to this committee, the reference to the 20-year-old policy document and the guidance document or so on. If you could forward that information to Ms. Gauthier, that might be helpful in regards to this. All right.
Thank you,
Madam Chair.
Mr. Greenhouse, just a moment, Ms. Gauthier. Mr. Greenhouse, did you?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I was just saying that, yes, I would happily do that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Greenhouse. Ms. Gauthier, did you have something?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will say that the arguments laid out on this slide are the exact issues that are before the administrative law judge right now.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Gauthier. I appreciate that information. So members, the big thing here is that this is rulemaking, and that's the reason why the bill is in front of us, because of the main subject of the bill is really about rulemaking and what affects that rulemaking. So I appreciated the time to get an understanding of that. So members, with that, seeing no further questions or hands raised at this time, Senator Osmek, if you would make the motion for Senate File 839, and this goes to Environment and Natural Resources. So that would be the motion, Senator Osmek.
Madam Chair, I would renew my motion previously made on Senate File 839.
Okay, on that motion, members, please unmute and come on screen for the vote. All those in favor of Senate File 839, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed, nay, and raise your hand.
No.
Nay.
Okay, we see those 3 nays. The bill is passed. And Senator Johnson, I apologize. I usually go to the author for closing comments. You're on your way to your committee, but my apologies. If you'd like to make some closing comments now, that would still be okay.
Madam Chair, we have a whole nother bill up, so I will keep my closing comments limited. Thank you for the opportunity to present 839 today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. My apologies again. All right, members. So Senator Johnson, you have another bill in front of us today, Senate File 1895. And Senate File 1895 is in front of us on this committee. I move that. And Ms. Senator Johnson, if you want to go ahead and present your bill.
Well, thank you. So this is a little bit different bill. This doesn't have to do quite as much with rules, but a little bit more into one of the backbones of our community radio that many of us may enjoy and listen to. There are 18 independent community radio stations across the state. Each one of these is locally managed and operated. In fact, the one up in my neck of the woods in Thief River Falls is managed by a fellow named Mark Johnson. So you can imagine I appreciate listening to him every morning. But with me today, I have Joel Glaser, who is president of the association and would like to testify on the impact and the need for Senate File 1895.
You couldn't arrange Senator Johnson to have Mark Johnson come and do this?
I really should have. It was an oversight on my part.
Oh,
but Joel, he'll do a wonderful job.
I'm sure he will. Mr. Glaser, welcome to the committee, and just say your name and title for the record, audio record, then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. For the record, my name is Joel Glaser, and I am the CEO of AMPERS, the Association of Minnesota Public Educational Radio Stations. And actually, we would have had Mark Johnson is our immediate past president. But we do have a new current chair. Madam Chair, with permission, I would like to do a screen share.
Yes, that would be okay. Just a moment, we'll make sure you have the permissions necessary to share screen. We'll just have to take a few seconds here.
You should have permission.
Okay, it should work, Mr. Glaser. There it goes.
Okay. Thank you again, Madam Chair and members, and thank you for bringing forth Senate File 1895 before the committee. I am going to keep this brief because the overwhelming majority of the committee members are familiar with AMPERS. I know there are a couple of new faces to the committee, so I'll touch on it just briefly and also stress that we are trying to reach out to the new members of the committee for any individual appointments, but I know those have been challenging in COVID. As Senator Mark Johnson pointed out, we do represent 18 community radio stations. They do get as far north as Grand Marais and Thief River Falls and down as far south as Winona, Mankato, and Austin. There's often there's a lot of confusion around AMPERS and Minnesota Public Radio and Twin Cities Public Television. And I can tell you when I was in commercial radio, I thought it was all under one umbrella and they were all the same. We are not affiliated with Minnesota Public Radio, and we are not affiliated with Twin Cities Public Television. The only real similarity is that we are all licensed as public, but beyond that, we are very different. And as Senator Johnson mentioned, each of these stations are programmed by and for their local community. We are an association rather than a network. And what that means is if you are listening to, and I used to have to say magically, listening to Grand Marais and Winona at the same time, now you can actually do that because of technology and you can listen, but you're going to hear very different content on those stations because they are programming specifically for their local community. We also, one very big difference is the diversity that we bring. 4 of the stations are licensed to Native American communities. We have Fond du Lac, Leech Lake, White Earth, and Bois Forte. All have tribal community radio stations. We have KMOJ here in the Twin Cities, serving primarily an African-American audience, and actually collectively have programming in 12 different languages. So it's a great deal of diversity, but they also play a very important role in safety and health. And a great example is even just this week, the 911 system went down in Cook County. And the only way for the emergency managers to get the word out in Grand Marais was through WTIP, because all the other radio and TV stations come in from either Duluth or Canada. WTIP is the only truly local radio station. So they were able to constantly be getting the word out about what people needed to do because the 911 system was not working. We also work very, very closely with the Department of Health. We have been very busy since about May of last year. And the reason for that is the Department of Health realized that Public service announcements are usually kind of tuned out. They're very dry and boring. So we work with them to create storytelling messaging and get elders and I hate to use the word influencers because that became a negative word here recently in the Twin Cities, but leaders within the community, leaders may even be a comedian, or it might be a musician, to share their own personal stories and get people to connect on COVID and why it's important to get a vaccine, et cetera. As far as our request for today, Madam Chair and members, it is pretty straightforward. On paper, it is an increase of $250,000, but the reason that we would like to point out that it's really not an increase is that in FY16, FY17 biennium, we saw 2 new stations come on board, WGZS in Fond du Lac and KRPR in Rochester. And as a result of that, the legislature was kind enough to increase so that all of the stations could keep at their same level. However, in the FY16, FY17 biennium, all of that money was put into the first year of the biennium rather than equally between the two, so nothing was in tails. And as a result of that, going forward in FY18-19 and in FY20-21, the existing 16 stations, that were originally getting the funding end up with less on a per station basis, which is why we are asking for that $250,000 increase to get us back to where we were in the 16-17 biennium on a per station basis. So you see graphically here for the community service, these grants actually go, it is not a direct appropriation, it goes to the Department of Administration. And then the commissioner takes a recommendation from AMPERS, and the funding does go equally to all of the 17 stations that are eligible. We do have 1 station, KUMM in Morris, does not qualify for state funds, and that's because of their size and is primarily a student-run station. So we work with them, but they do not receive state funds. So, Madam Chair, we are asking for that $250,000 increase, which would be $284,000 for the biennium for our equipment grant. That is used to purchase broadcast equipment, and then $984,000 that would be spread out equally to all of the 17 stations that are eligible for their community service. They have been playing a very important role in the community in this past year, especially in the biennium. With that, Madam Chair, I think I can wrap up. We can keep this very brief, and I will make myself available should there be any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Glazer. Could you take down the screen share so then we're all able to have a little bit more
Absolutely.
bigger view? Thank you so much. Appreciate all that information. And Mr. Glazer, I'm interested about that because of the, I remember funding AMPERS in previous budgets. So Mr. Erickson, could you explain, you've seen these slides here, could you explain a little bit more for the committee on what this means in regards to the statements and the slides about the funding?
Yes, Madam Chair, what Mr. Glazer said, it just conforms to what my understanding of the situation would be based on the spreadsheets, that because that money in the 16-17 biennium had been front loaded, the budget rules would not have allowed any increase there to carry forward. But there has been base funding for AMPERS for the community service grants and the equipment grants in the past couple biennia. I believe Mr. Glazer's slide did indicate what the increase would be to bring them back to that previous fiscal 16-17 level of funding.
So when you say front loaded, that means the money was put into 16 and 0 and 17. And so the way the budget books work is that it's the last year that carries forward into the base. Is that correct? Mr. Erickson? Oh, you froze. Sorry, Mr. Erickson.
Madam Chair, I do have an answer to that.
Mr. Glazer, if you could, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to be more clear, the increase was in 16, and so our base then dropped down into 17. So we did continue to receive funding in 18, 19, and 20 and 21, but it was that increase that was all in the first year. And since they didn't split it equally, the increase did not carry forward as a base.
I get it now.
Madam Chair, I apologize.
Erickson,
I apologize. I froze there, but from what I heard from Mr. Glazer, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, even better when we have the two key people who have the same understanding. That's always really good. Okay, I'm seeing no hands here, Mr. Glazer. This bill is going to be laid over, Senator Johnson. So would you like closing comments before you leave, though?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it again. And thank you, members, for your patience today. But we all see the importance of the Ampers radio stations in our communities. I'm very proud to carry this bill forward today and appreciate Joel for his time here. And I just appreciate your support. So thank you, Madam Chair, members.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. Thank you, Mr. Glazer.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. So we have concluded Senate File 1895 is being laid over. The next item on our agenda is Senate File 353. Senator Curran, as a member of the committee, you can go ahead, present your bill, and I see you have a testifier. Let me know when you're ready for that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move Senate File 353. And then along with that, Madam Chair, we also have an amendment, an A4 amendment that I'd like to take care of on the front side. And then we can get to the bill.
Okay.
So I'd like to move the A4 amendment to Senate File 353.
Okay, A4 amendment. This is not your first hearing on this bill, correct, Senator Curran?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, then if you would go ahead and just explain your amendment.
Madam Chair, this is the minute housekeeping bill, or no longer really known as minute after we do this. So if Mr. Eichten could cover the amendment, then we'll be good.
Okay, Mr. Eichten, welcome to the committee. And if you'd explain the A4 amendment for Senator Curran.
Absolutely, Madam Chair, Senator Curran, committee members. So the A4 amendment, for the record, my name is John Eichten, the Deputy Commissioner of Minnesota IT Services. The amendment aligns the language in the Senate bill with some technical changes that were made on the House side. Adds the word services after the name of the agency in the first paragraph of the bill. Apologies, I'm scrolling there. So 15 Minnesota Statutes 15.01. It deletes the words "and Lieutenant Governor," and before "select" inserts the word "also" on page 9, line 25. It clarifies that the chair is appointed by the governor. The current language of the bill is contradictory because it says that both the governor would appoint the chair and the committee members would appoint the chair. So really just a technical amendment to match it with the House. No real substantive change other than clarifying that contradiction. Happy to answer any questions the committee has.
Okay, with that, Senator Curran, there's no questions. So if you go ahead and move your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move the A4 amendment to Senate File 353.
Okay, the A4 amendment being moved to Senate File 353. Members unmute and be on camera. All those in favor say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. The A4 amendment is adopted to Senate File 353. To your bill as amended, Senator Curran, do you want your testifier to proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just make a comment. It is a technical bill in housekeeping, and we are going to move the technology department from an acronym to an actual definition in terms. But the one piece I'd like to call it is really in Section 9 is moving. It goes along with some of the work we did on the Blue Ribbon Council of Technology to formally establishing the advisory board, which I think is critical. So we not only just create reports over every 10 years, but we actually have the mechanisms to include the private-public partnership and the continued ongoing implementation of the recommendations. So we have the built-in follow-up. So with that, Madam Chair, I'd turn it over to Deputy Commissioner Eichten.
Thank you, Senator Curran. Deputy Commissioner Eichten, if you could go ahead and explain the bill then.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks to Senator Curran for carrying this legislation. As the Senator noted, this is a technical cleanup bill of Minnesota Statute 16E, which is the minute enabling statute. This bill flows from OLA recommendations that were made in their February 2019 report on minute and the IT consolidation effort, where they called for some outdated, sometimes contradictory, overly expansive language about the role of minute to be cleaned up in the enabling statutes, sort of post-consolidation. For those who, if you recall, consolidation occurred in 2011. So this really addresses some outdated and contradictory language that remain from the statute. It does clarify that Minute's primary responsibilities are to the state's executive branch agencies. It does change the membership of the Technology Advisory Committee, which is a pre-existing advisory committee, to align with the membership of the Blue Ribbon Commission on IT, with those additional private sector IT leaders serving on the council, which has really been a great addition to the work of the group and the recommendations that have emerged. The bill also clarifies Minute's legal name, as Senator Curran mentioned. So it is not a name change. Minute will continue to be Minute, will continue to operate as Minnesota IT Services, but it does address the sort of oddity that is our name in the statute appears right now as Office of MN period IT Services. So it's actually a acronym by law. This would align our legal name to sort of the model was the MMB's legal name, which it is technically the Minnesota Department of Management and Budget, which may do business as Minnesota Management and Budget. This would make it the Minnesota Department of Information Technology Services that does business as Minnesota IT Services, Minute. The bill also removes some outdated languages, such as references to a state webmaster, removes mechanisms from the statute that existed in law from pre-IT consolidation days when Minute, or then OET, the Office of Enterprise Technology, needed additional mechanisms in order to exercise its external oversight of agency IT projects. Those projects are now performed by Minute staff or by our contractors and vendors, so those mechanisms are out of date. The bill does allow the state CIO to define thresholds and timing parameters for project registration and reporting. So the current statute's contradictory on these points. It includes a definition of an IT project that would essentially make any purchase of IT software or tools an IT project and require enterprise level registration and tracking. So this bill provides some flexibility for that definition to be evolved over time for the purposes of tracking and reporting registration. Also removes some overly expansive language about the role of Minute. I would say that this was maybe language from the early days of the kind of as the internet was emerging, calls for things such as Minute to promote and coordinate electronic commerce initiatives to ensure that Minnesota businesses and citizens can successfully compete in the global economy, and to facilitate the development of electronic commerce among international, national, state, and local public and private organizations. We're removing this, we're suggesting this be removed just to clarify that Minute's primary responsibilities to the executive branch as an internal IT service provider to our business partner state agencies, and duties like this, more appropriately would fall under a Department of Commerce or Department of Employment and Economic Development. And lastly, the bill contains some repealers, such as repeal of language that would require appropriations for any IT project to be made directly to Minute. In practice, the legislatures continued to appropriate IT project dollars for agency business systems directly to the business partner agency, with Minute charging back for the services rendered by Minute staff or by our external service providers. So this bill repeals that language and aligns the statute with the legislative practice that's been in place for several biennia now. That's about it for a summary. I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have. And thanks again to Senator Curran and to the committee members.
Thank you, Mr. Eiten. I appreciate your presentation here. Could you explain a little bit more on section 14 on page 12? Has to do, it says, notwithstanding section 16A28 sub 3 about unexpended operating balance transferred. This looks familiar, so it might be just moving it. However, could you just explain it further, Mr. Eiten?
Absolutely, Madam Chair, your intuition there is absolutely correct. It's existing language in the statute that the revisor suggested moving to another section of the statute just to, for the sake of clarity.
Okay.
And it relates to the Information Telecommunications Technology Systems and Services account, which is kind of commonly referred to as the Odyssey account.
Okay. Ms. James, I have another question. I just wanted to ask you about something else, Mr. Eiten, but I'm going to go to Ms. James next. Ms. James, you had your hand up. You're on mute, though.
I apparently can't handle putting my hand down and turning my microphone on. So Madam Chair and Senator Cran and members, I wanted to suggest a tiny technical clarification to the Advisory Council. This would be on page 9, lines 29 through 31. Probably as it reads now, most people would interpret it exactly the way it's intended, but to be crystal clear, I wanted to suggest on page 9, line 29, at the end of the line there, after leader, insert of the House. And then on the next line, line 30, after leader, insert of the Senate. And on line 31, after leader, insert of the Senate.
Senator Coran, I think that would be an oral amendment that I would like you to move if you accept it.
Madam Chair, I would accept the oral amendment as proposed by Ms. James.
Okay, Ms. James, would you repeat the oral amendment?
Madam Chair and members, on page 9, line 29, after leader, insert of the House. On page 9, line 30, after leader, insert of the Senate. On page 9, line 31, after leader, insert of the Senate.
Okay, Senator Coran, if you want to move your oral amendment.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the oral amendment as stated by Ms. James.
Okay, on the oral amendment, all those in favor, unmute, come on screen. All those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, motion prevails and is adopted. Okay, Mr. Eiten, do you have something further?
Sure.
Mr. Eiten, nothing further?
Oh, apologies. No, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right. Senator Coran, I'm not seeing any other questions here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With no other questions, I'd like to move that Senate File 353 as amended be recommended to pass and re-referred to Rules Committee.
Members, because it has legislative appointments, it has to go to the Rules Committee. Okay, on that motion, all those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Senate File 353 as amendment is on its way to the Rules Committee. Thank you very much, Senator Coran.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
And Senator Howe, I'll be ready shortly with the next two bills.
All right, Senator Kiffmeyer. I think first up is Senate File 1831, I believe.
Yes, it is, Mr. Chair. So members, Senate File 1831 is just a referencing the legislature or library without cost would get all documents published by the state and shall receive them automatically without cost to the legislature or library. Very simple thing. And yes, members, this is a vehicle bill and will be laid over.
With any questions from members? Seeing none, Senate File 1831 is laid over. The next bill would be Senator Kiffmeyer, your Senate File 1948.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Senate File 1948 just adds on to the purpose of the LCC to coordinate the legislative activities of the Senate and House of Representatives. And it also includes and the joint legislative commissions, committees, offices, and task force. So it just makes a more thorough completion of the duties of the Legislative Coordinating Commission. And again, this is a vehicle bill, Mr. Chair, this bill would be laid over.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And any questions from members? No questions from members that I see. This bill will be laid over. Senate File 1948 is laid over for possible inclusion. Senator Kiffmeyer, I'll pass the gavel back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. And members, that concludes our business for today. We will have our 2 hearings as scheduled for next week. This is deadline week. I know all of you have many committees and much work to do. And so I'm glad that we were able to have front loaded our work last week. And so this week it allows us a little bit more time for all the many activities that are going on. With no other business before the committee, we stand adjourned. Thank you.